The nonprofit MBA purpose is to provide new business insights and fresh creative ideas for executive directors and their teams that will help them improve their organization. Here is your host, Stephen Halasnik.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephen Halasnik. I will be your host for today's Nonprofit MBA podcast. Since I've been hosting this for 6 years. And for those of you who don't know me, I am the co-founder of Financing Solutions. And Financing Solutions is the largest provider of lines of credit to small nonprofits in the United States. Yes, there is a company who specializes in doing that. And it's really a very valuable and popular product. And, if you think you're unique to ups and downs in your cash flow, you're not. It's a very common occurrence. And if you're interested in learning more about a line of credit for your organization, please visit our website at nonprofitmbapodcast.com. Again, that's nonprofitmbapodcast.com. Today, I am very excited to be speaking with Bethany Planton and Jonah Rogers from Healthy Grant Pro. Bethany Planton is the founder and CEO of BMP Consulting, a capacity building firm established in September of 2016. Bethany helps nonprofit leaders and grant professionals build and maintain strategic and sustainable nonprofits and to have fun along the way. And for the last 25 years, Jonah Rogers has worked with clients and employees to bring more than $300 million to help those who need it most. She is a 2021 GPA Class of Distinguished Fellows inductee and the immediate past GPA president. She is also an approved GPA trainer and an original GPC, receiving certification in 2008. The Healthy Grant Pro team has authored 2 seminal works on burnout in the grants profession, published in volume 18 and 19 of the Journal of the Grant Professionals Association. Bethany and Jonah, welcome to today's Nonprofit MBA podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I've done like 300 podcasts, and there's certain ones that really resonate with me, and this is going to be one of them. And the reason being is that out of all the 300 podcasts I do, every single one at the end, I talk about how people who are working at the nonprofits, they need to prioritize themselves over their cause, their employees, their family. That this saving the world is a marathon and not a sprint. And today, our topic, which is going to be, having to do with not burning out, or we'll try to cover, if we can, a little bit of what to do when you do have burnout. Because I think it's very common. And it's not just common, by the way, for everybody who knows, it's not just common in the nonprofit world, very common in the business world too. So, start off with, Bethany, what do you think the signs of burnout typically are in the workplace?
Mm-hmm. Well, we like to reference Maslach and Leiter. They were seminal in starting some research within the burnout, and then the WHO, World Health Organization. I was like, I can't get to that. World Health Organization has now defined it as well. So now we have like solid definitions to go from, where it's a sign you're feeling more like you cannot make decisions. You don't want to make decisions. It's that inefficacy of like, I just don't want to do this. Signs of exhaustion, and not just I need a nap every once in a while, but like I can't get up out of bed. I don't want to go to work. I know when I was experiencing burnout, it was like, don't make me go there. Like, I just don't, like, I have energy for other things, but I never had energy to go to work. And then Jonna helped me with the third one.
Let's see, your inefficacy. Oh, wow.
I know one of the signs too. Now, I don't know based on that report, but one of the signs is the things that you're used to be excited about doing, you're not excited about.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think that was a good one. That I think that a lot of people can resonate with. You're like, what's the matter with me? I'm not motivated to do this stuff anymore. Right.
Well, and Stephen, one of the things that we talk about a lot is that we blame ourselves, and we say, if I could just do it better, if I could be this, if I could do that. And that's not it entirely. I mean, we all did it. We've all done it. We think that we could find the solution, if we could do something at a higher level, if I could help people understand my job more, if I could just be more efficient, if I could manage my time, then the world would be a better place. And none of those things are true. Most of us who have experienced burnout are at the top of our game when we actually hit that wall. We are really efficient. We are really effective, but it's still happening. And so that's when we have to dig a little deeper and say, okay, what can I control? This much. And what is happening in my workplace that's not quite working for me? What is it that's going on? And before we get too far down that path, I'm not saying you have to leave your job. No. But sometimes there's a communication aspect that's missing. We happen, Bethany and I, to work in a field where nobody knows what we do. They don't understand. And so when they hand us a new task, they think, oh, she'll get this done because she always does. But they don't quite understand that little task they handed us is 100 hours of work on top of the other 100 hours of work they already gave us. So some of it we can control through communication, but part of it is just everything else.
You're right. This podcast is geared toward executive directors and their staff, and some board members come on too. So, but I was thinking about myself, but the executive directors, where when there's burnout at that level, because in general, maybe the executive director is responding to a board, but in general, you can structure your own day and week based on what you want to work on. That's the advantage of being a leader, right? But if people are giving you work, burnout is a different problem, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, do you think we should be talking today about burnout amongst leaders who are really in control of what they're working on, or do you think we should cover both areas?
I'd still say both, because both can burn out. I mean, it does not.
No, I know they both get burned
Right.
out, but it's if you're an executive director, if you're working for an executive director and they keep piling stuff on, what you need to do, it's a different scenario, isn't it?
Yes.
Because you have to do it, or you have to educate your boss about, wait a minute, that you just gave me 3 assignments. That's going to take this amount of time. Which is more important to you? Right?
Exactly.
So let's gear the conversation today toward the leaders. The ones, you are basically in control 80 to 90% of your own time. Right? So in that case, how do you, let's say, if you're already in burnout, because that's probably a lot of people who are listening to this, what do you do about it?
You might need to go just take a nap for a minute just to reset. Some things
Right.
to help reset you. And that may be taking some time off. When's the last time you actually took personal time off? Has it been a while? Maybe it's just something it's easier like that. Depends on how deep. We don't have a great measurement to be are we at the beginning of burnout? Are we really deep in burnout? But maybe if you're towards the beginning, not working in the evenings for a couple nights might help with that. Not, looking at your emails constantly, taking some personal time away from the computer. We're in the summer, take some vacation time, there's some federal holidays coming up. Just time away sometimes is at least the first step of being able to be okay, now I can look at stuff with a little more clear head with how I want to structure my time.
Yeah.
And I was going to add to that, there are absolutely specific strategies about burnout that involve everything Bethany just said. For example, do you have a time of day where your day is over, where you shut it down, you move away from the computer, and by the way, I work from home. It's kind of hard to move away from my office. It's here. I'm on the porch. I have another office in there. At between 5 and 6, there's a hard shutdown for me. Stephen, you were asking about my dog earlier. My dog is, as Bethany's dog is, our wellness champion. They make you do things away from your desk. You have to walk them. You have to do these other things. But also, if I'm not in the kitchen cooking dinner by 6:30, my dog thinks the world has ended. It's just like something's wrong. The house is on fire. So for any of us, whether we're in leadership or we are responding to a leader, those are the things. Put some speed bumps in your life that require you to take a breath. I no longer, and I did this for years and years, I no longer use the computer on the couch. Now, you know how you take the computer to the couch and you're just going to watch some bad TV? No, just watch the bad TV. Have a little popcorn. Don't take the computer with you. And Bethany mentioned emails. Okay, so do you feel compelled to answer emails all weekend because you think it makes you look like a warrior and you have to No. What you're doing is you're interfering in other people's lives. When you send an email on a Saturday afternoon at 2:00, you have just compounded the problem. You have brought burnout on yourself and you've shared it with all of your employees. No, if you feel compelled, okay, schedule that email to arrive at 7:30 a.m. on Monday. There's nothing wrong with that. But so for the executive director, part of it is if I want to have my own peace and my own ability to control this thing called burnout, I need to also share that. I need to model it. I need to show my folks that, at 4:30, I'm leaving the office to go to the gym. At 4:30, I'm going to go pick up a grandkid. At 5:30, I'm going to go do X that has nothing to do with this place. And I know because I'm an executive director who hired you, you awesome person, it's going to be okay because I hired you, you awesome person. So it's a trust issue as well as how do I take care of myself? I'm trusting myself. I'm trusting my employees. And I'm going to make sure that there's a balance there for all of us, not just for me, not just for them, but for us. And that creates a healthy culture of and I hate the term work-life balance, but it creates a balance of the work with what's reasonable in the amount of time we have to do that work.
Yeah, I like what you're saying. I mean, of course, I like what both of you are saying, and I'll give you an example of something that happened to me, just because I think it's relevant to this discussion. So when I was in my late teenage and early 20s, I played college sport baseball, and I got super burned out from it. All right. And I learned a lesson that when I got into the work world, I said, this really affected me and I don't want that to happen again. And so one of the things I've been able to do over the last, 35 years is I've never suffered burnout in work or in any part of my life. And because I learned from that first experience of burnout, and the way that I've done that is I prioritize my health, my family, my entertainment, just as much as I prioritize my work. So it's a balanced lifestyle. And so many, many, many people I know have suffered from burnout throughout their career. And I have never had that because I always have something that I'm doing outside of work. And therefore, when it comes to me working, I always have the energy. I always have the enthusiasm to, and the wits to be able to manage my staff because I have something else going on. So and I think, a good example of what you said, Jonah, is that you talked about people checking their emails. When do you really check your emails? All the time? When do you do it after work? Because you have nothing else to do, right?
Mhm.
No, I
Mhm.
have nothing else to do. Let me look at my phone, right? Now, I'm not telling something everybody doesn't know, right? But it needs to be said,
Mhm.
that you either have to have rules in place, you have to have other interests that you're engaged in, or you need to use technology to,
Mhm.
you can shut off emails so that
Right.
they don't come in at certain times.
Yeah.
I like what you said, going back to your staff and saying, we are going to prioritize to make sure we don't burn out as a team. And, these are the new rules and these are the things, and it's going to help me and it's going to help you guys. And this is what the new thing is. So what do you think, Bethany, about that whole topic?
Well, this is definitely all about talking about some of the strategies that we've outlined. And so one of them, we had them in 3 categories of eye care. We don't like the term self-care. We thought that was did not quite grasp what we were trying to get to. So we have I care, we care, and they care. And under I care, a lot of what you were talking about, Stephen, with having some outside interest. Yes, something that makes you want to close the computer, wants to, be out and about, do something else. John and I are both huge readers. We do a lot of reading, and our to be read lists are very long. And so that's kind of motivating. I actually sometimes get stressed out I'm like, I'm not reading. I'm working too much. If I'm working too much and not reading enough, then I feel stressed about it. I can tell. So that's one of those other things we talked about was like,
The only problem I have with that is, are you reading something that's for work?
no,
No,
never.
Okay.
no,
Because I
never.
think,
No, we
because I
love
think
No,
fiction. We
okay.
read so much
'Cause actually,
fiction.
if you say you're reading and then you're reading
no,
stuff that
Oh
helps you with your
no,
job,
no.
no.
well,
The only
so
way it helps
Bad
us with our
British
job,
fiction.
yes, the only way it helps us with our job is that they say readers are better writers. That's the only
Right.
that we're not really reading anything that is not non. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. Mostly it's
Nope.
fiction. Mostly it's escape. It's my entertainment. It's like somebody turning on their favorite TV show. I just want to pick up my favorite book and don't bother me till I finish this book.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Bethany also kind of alluded to are those boundaries that we set. That it is. If we have a habit of always being on email, people expect us to always be on email, and therefore they ask us for things when we're on Sunday night, and not going there. I will literally not answer, even if I look at my phone. Even if I happen to know, if I look at it and I see that there's an email at 6 o'clock on a Sunday, I'm intentionally not going to answer it. I kind of now know about it. Monday morning I can address it, but I'm not going to answer it because that just propagates this whole thing that we can't ever be away from the communication. This last week, I was telling Bethany earlier, this last week, I kind of sort of took the week off. I had some personal things I was taking care of. I had a lot of things. I did some quiet work but I wasn't doing podcasts. I wasn't doing training. I wasn't publicly working last week. And it was a much lighter feel for me. It gives me, and every June it's the same batch of personal stuff. Took a breath. I'm able to say, okay, I'm still taking care of life. I'm still doing what I need to do as a consultant who works for myself. There's still always things you have to do. Well, but I put those boundaries in place that said, okay, we're going to take care of that in the middle of June through the 1st of July. We'll take care of that. It'll be fine. And I've got it scheduled. It's all, right there. And in a few days, I'll jump right back over into the full blown everything. So that'll be kind of what I do. It's what I do every June. I've been doing it for probably 10 years now. But I know that I can schedule it much like executive directors can schedule it. We know when the big crunches are coming as an executive director. I've been one twice in my professional life. It's not a job I love. Not a job I love, because there is a lot of expectation for me, the executive director, to be all things to all people. Today, we have a more an atmosphere. If we do it well, we have an atmosphere that's more like, let's all do it together. getting the input, giving the feedback, having the communication. For Bethany and me, because we work in a very unique field in the grant writing and nonprofit field, not everybody knows what we do, and that's okay. If the executive director knew exactly what we did, we wouldn't have a job, right? I mean, if you hire someone to be your mechanic, guess what? You hired them because you don't know how to do that. So there is a disconnect. I don't need the executive director to know exactly what I do, but what I do need from any boss in any situation is to understand that I have a brain, that there's a finite measure of time, and we need to determine how we use that time. And we do that together. So that prevents a lot of what we see in our work as burnout. Understanding the amount of time and that are involved in those tasks. And that translates directly to what a manager of people has to know. They have to be able to do that. They have to understand, okay, I can trust Jonna. And when Jonna tells me she can't do 5 federal grants in a month, Jonna understands that she can't do it. And I can't ask her to. That's not something that needs to be done. And so that spreads out to the procurement department and the marketing department and all the other departments. So the executive director has to understand that gets into the they care. How do I prevent others from being burned out so that I get my job done in an appropriate amount of time? And that's understanding what everybody's doing at a certain level, not deeply, but trusting employees to do their jobs and to understand their jobs. And I'll let Bethany talk a while. Stephen, you can tell I like to talk, I'm sure.
No, I didn't notice. Well, Bethany, I mean, listen, you're not going to learn if you say if you're listening today and you say you're in burnout, you're not going to come out of burnout after listening to a 35-minute podcast about what we're talking about. This should be an introduction. Maybe you're getting some new ideas, but you got to read what you guys sent out, what you guys have. You got to pick up a book about it. And then you got to say, these are the changes I'm going to make. Right. I mean, I know one of the things that's helped me out a lot, and that is I often think that I have a certain limited amount of gasoline and I have to use it very, very wisely. At some point, that gasoline is going to get lower and lower and lower. And I need to be able to make sure the things I'm working on are going to make the biggest impact in the organization. So, saying no to certain things is very, very important, isn't it? And being able to recognize that you're going to be in this for a very long period of time. If you go and run a sprinter's pace in a marathon, you're going to kill yourself in the first mile, right? And this is your career. It's very similar to a 26-mile marathon. So, you're going to be in it for a long time. Can you keep that pace up? And if you can't keep that pace up, and the other thing I was going to say, and Bethany, I'll let you jump in after this because I feel like I'm turning into Jonah. But I can imagine somebody who is an executive director who is doing everything, going crazy, and driving their staff crazy.
Yes.
Because they keep saying, oh, I got to do this, but I'm burning out. Please help me, but I'm burning out. And, you got to recognize that your staff, that gets them really nervous. When they see you are that way, you're supposed to be the leader in the behavior of the organization. And it's not all about you. Right. It's more, in fact, whenever I manage people, I always think it's about them, not about me, because if it's about them, then I don't have to do as much work. Right. So what do you think, Bethany? What's your thoughts?
Yes. Yeah. Going along these lines, I also thought we need to talk about maybe the board, because sure, the executive director can be thinking about their staff, and yes, think about your staff, put them first. Because if you are stressed and can't answer your own emails, that's going to just put more work on them. But going back to that being strategic, saying no to things because you can't do everything. Has the board created a strategic plan? Right? And then are you operating off of it? Like, are we mission drifting? Like, what? And then maybe also talking to the board of like, okay, I can't do all of this. Like, what is manageable for me and my staff and the amount of people? If you want us to do all of this, we need to either find more money, and you're a part of that as our governance, or help us find more staff people to do it. But I think there needs to be more of that conversation, because the executive leader, yes, may have a lot of agency to be able to direct some things, but they're still answering to the board, and the board also helps set this organizational culture that helps make things sustainable, and not just sustainable with money, but sustainable with our time and our resources and our people.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, having a plan and prioritizing the plan, that it will go a long way in stopping burnout, as long as you don't try to do more than what the plan really calls for.
Yep.
Right. I think a lot of burnout will happen when you don't have any plan. You're just doing things ad hoc. And then there's no purpose, there's no drive.
Yep.
So I agree with you. And it's also a great opportunity to, there's a level of managing up, right? Instead of managing down, managing up, you say is, okay, if you want us to do this, this, and this, we only have a 3-person team. How do you expect us to get that done? So what is most important for you? And let's face it, the people listening to this, the executive directors, in most cases, they don't answer to the board. In most cases, the board answers to the executive director, right? Because the executive director they know they need to have board members. They've gotten either friends or acquaintances or people who donated. And in general, you're working as a team, but the executive director really is kind of leading the board until you get much bigger. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's very fair.
I think it's fair.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I also think that one of the things I see that happens, and at least 3 times a year, I get a phone call from someone in my local community here in Bowling Green, Kentucky, who calls. It's an executive director, and they say, okay, so the board came to me and said, we now need to do this. That's a full-time job. I already had a full-time job, and now they want me to do this too. What am I supposed to say to that? And I say, okay, you go to them and you sit down and you say, okay, let's prioritize my time. Let's look at this. I need your help. And that's where that they care comes in, is that I need whoever is my supervisor, and we all have a supervisor. We all do. Whoever my supervisor is, I need to have the confidence that they care about me as a human being and as an employee enough that they will listen when I say, hey, I have these competing things that are being asked of me. I need help to prioritize which of these is in line with the strategic plan, is in line with what our funders need us to do this year, is in line with what we plan to do next year. So for the next 6 to 9 weeks, I need you to help me lay out a plan for how I get this done. And that is as you said, managing up. Because when we have that conversation, it's informing to whomever that is, whether it's the board or your funders, whatever. It's a conversation that will help them realize, oh, okay, I just thought this was a form you had to fill out. I didn't realize it was going to take you 50 hours. Well, yeah, it's going to take me 50 hours. Well, I didn't realize you had to drive 4 hours to get to this meeting with this person to really those are things that when our boards say that to us, that they don't really get what they're saying. They're simply saying it. And so we have to then take a step back and say, oh, what a great idea. My favorite phrase. What a great idea. Let's sit down and figure out how to make that happen. Right? Not, are you insane? Which is what we really want to say, but what a great idea. Can you help me make that happen? And that's a totally different conversation that really helps us, no matter what our job is, whether we have 14 bosses or we are the boss. that's a great idea. How do we make it happen? And that's where, again, those hard conversations can happen, where we can really delve into the practical side of how to get the work done.
Yeah, I was thinking about something. Yeah, I was thinking about something that I use. I've always used, and I learned it from when I was younger. A manager that I had who was excellent. He called it a commitment action document, and it's basically just a spreadsheet. And inside of that, whenever I had meetings with my employees, I would I'd write down what they're responsible for. I would prioritize it with them. And then next time we had the next meeting, we would go over that commitment action document and say, okay, this was your number one priority. How did you do against it? Tell me a little bit more about what's going on there, because I wanted to understand what's going on in their world. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't giving them too much work. And they were working on the things that were really important. And then I needed to hold them accountable. But now that I think about it, you can use that CAD going up. So how many times when you have your board meetings, do you spend 15 minutes and telling and showing the board where you've been spending your time? Because I'm sure they'd like to really kind of know that. Remember that project you gave me? Because otherwise, every board meeting is another opportunity for them to give you more work.
Yes.
And right, and it's right, and it might, the projects that they give you might last 9 months, 12 months, and you have a board meeting every month. So, this is a way for them to say, oh, okay, if you want me to work on this, what about this project that we're working on now that you just gave me last month? And it's not you're not trying to trick anybody. It's just a way for everybody to be on the same page about we have a limited amount of time and resources, right? Bethany, what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, agreed. Let's again, that finite amount of resources, let's take care of ourselves because we want to be in it for the long haul. Like we want to be able to serve for the long haul. We don't want this organization to fold because we can't do what we said we were going to do. We took on too much and then we don't have the resources, whether it's people, time, funding to do it. Yeah.
Bethany, I want you to tell me, you're getting you get these calls from these executive directors. Tell me the signs that you see when you're speaking to somebody that they are all over the place and burnt out. What do you recognize in that call?
Usually they can't keep a thought. It'll be like they start on one thing, and they kind of and if you ask them their priorities, then they're going to list everything. If they, especially being a grant professional, what do you need funding for? Well, I need it X, Y, Z, A, B, D, 1 and 2. Like, let me give you everything, and it's just
all over the place. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, tell me the opposite. The person that you say, "Whoa, this person is really." They're really they know what they're doing. So tell me what they're like.
They're more like, we've got these 3 programs and we've done we've done them this way, we have this program and can tell me kind of a elevator speech of this program. We have this program and we have this program. And this is our priority because we haven't been able to prioritize it as much, or we're seeing a bigger need for this right now. And you can just tell it's well thought out.
Yeah.
That there's maybe some resources already devoted to it. That's also what I'm looking at often is, do you have any resources already devoted to these programs that you're talking about? What are you thinking that you want to do? If it's totally new, it's the well thought out, we know there's a need. Here's our solution to that need. And we only have a couple of them within our finite resources.
Jonah, have you ever gotten a call from your clients and you've dealt with them a little bit over a period of a couple of months, and you're starting to read the tea leaves, and you're like, they're going a million miles an hour. You may not be able to recognize burnout because that's a personal thing, but have you ever stopped them and said, what do you say to somebody like that?
And many of us who work in nonprofits, we have people we talk to regularly who are in that same position. And they could be what I call cross-sector. So I try to always have 2 or 3 local nonprofit executives that I am just having lunch with from time to time. And we just talk, and you can feel it. And they'll ask you things. Well, what should I do about this? What should I do about this? And it's those what should I do about conversations, whether it's a client or someone I might be quasi-mentoring, that where we go, okay, yeah, that's a real challenge. I see that that's a challenge. There's nothing I can tell them. They know in their brain that whatever this is that's being handed to them, whatever the situation is, they know that it's a little not correct, but they may not have a solution for it. And again, like everything else that we do in nonprofits, that great communication, that's where that comes in. We have to be able to have that conversation that, wow, again, it's a great idea, but okay, we have to figure out how to make this happen, because I already had a full-time job before this great idea came out. And so how am I supposed to do that? With an individual, then what I do is simply ask them some questions and get them to think through, okay, is this something that if I don't do it right now, the building will burn down? If I don't just jump right out of my daily life and take care of it, then we're all toast. There are actually very few things in life that fall into that category. We may feel like it's critically important, but if we take a step back, it's usually just because a certain board member really wanted us to do that, or because a partner really needed us to do that. And while that's important, it's not my house is on fire critical. There are many other things that come before that. And so for that person, I say, okay, make a list. What are all the things that you think you need to do in the next half day? Let's do a half day. And let's see what comes up on that list. The most important things for you to do your job as you see it with your board and your strategic plan. What do you need to do? And then the rest at 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock, whatever your go home time is, you're done. You're done. If you can't get it all done, there you go. We talk a lot in nonprofits about time management, and someone very wise once told me there is no such thing. There is only task management. Time is time. It is what it is. You have to manage what you put into that time. And that's where executive directors, we do it to ourselves. We take on more rather than saying, what a great thing for us to look at in our next strategic plan. What a great thing for us to assign to a couple of volunteers who are eager to go. What a great thing for us to do, maybe never. And that's the conversation we need to be having. If it's a priority for my board, not one board member, my board, then I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it as well as I possibly can. I'm going to prioritize it. I'm going to be clear about it. And all of my staff are going to work with me on that, whether I have one staff or 3. Okay, because many of the times we ain't got more than 3. But if it's just one board member, I'm going to think about that. And I'm also going to ask my board chair. I would like for you, board chair, to assign someone to look after me. Okay, I look after the staff. I look after you. I need someone to look after me as the executive director, to kind of be that HR person that small nonprofits don't have. We don't have an HR department. We have an executive director who takes it all. So what if we had one board member who is in charge of our they care, that they're watching the board. They're making sure the board is not dumping all the stuff. That the board, I have a young friend who, well, she's 40. I don't know how young that is anymore. Anyway, she's younger than me. And she was complaining about a board member the other day who gave her another fundraiser to do. There was one board member who had a great idea. Doesn't mean she has to do that.
I'm shocked that one person on the board could delegate, could say something like that.
Yes. Yes, it's awesome.
I'd be like, okay, well, we'll bring it up at the board meeting and let's go over what I'm working on right now. And it sounds like a good idea, but let's look at it and we'll see if it can fit into the agenda.
Right.
I'm
I've
shocked.
worked with dozens of boards over
Oh, I believe it
20
happened.
years. And yeah.
I believe it
Oh,
happened. I'm just saying
and
is
again,
yeah,
as me as that former executive director, part of that blame falls to me for letting that happen
of
and
course.
not being able to manage that
Sure.
expectation. But it happens all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the other thing that you have to realize is a couple thing is, I hope you think that most people think the cause isn't uh, all about how you are going to accomplish the cause.
No. Yes.
Right.
I mean, I want you to think about the idea of, okay, what happens is if you become incapacitated
Mm-hmm.
next week, what's going to happen to the cause? Okay. So if you're doing all the work and there's no processes, there's no procedures,
Yep.
there's no delegation, there's not a team around, this is a big important thing. Can you go away for 2 weeks and the organization just runs on its own? Because if you can't do that, then you're not building an organization that's going to succeed in the long run. And that's why succession planning is
Mm-hmm.
such a good opportunity, because it's about building an organization that can run no matter who's in that seat.
Yep.
And I think that's a great exercise for people to do. First, you got to get out of your burnout.
Yeah.
And listen, I think, isn't it fair to say almost everybody under 40, I hate to say 40, but like under 30, they have had to learn the skills of how to manage their tasks and time, right? I mean, some of us are good at it naturally, some of us aren't. But at some point, you've said to yourself, my God, I'm driving myself crazy. I'm going to have to get better at this, right? And you're saying it's a good idea about asking someone on the board, but you can also say to somebody, can you mentor me? I
Mm-hmm.
see that you're doing this really, really well. I have a problem with prioritizing what to work on, and I'm not good at it. I want to improve upon that. I see you're good at it. You've been an executive for 30 years, and it looks like make sure you pick somebody who was good at it. But right, Bethany, I'll give you a couple of last words to kind of talk about.
Yeah. Well, I think the analogy that we get on a plane and the oxygen mask analogy really sums up the whole thing. What do they tell you? They tell you to put your own oxygen mask on before assisting others. They even now, like I was just on a flight not too long ago, and they talked to, went down the aisle to all parents or anybody. I should not assume they're parents. Anybody traveling with children, and said, "You first, right, and then them." Like they specifically said it, because if we're burnt out, if we are not taking care of ourselves, first of all, who else is going to take care of ourselves? We have to do it ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we're burnt out, we're not helpful to anybody. We're probably making more work for other people. So figure out ways that help you. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's the same for everybody. There's lots of strategies. What works for you to help you not burn out?
Well, I knew it was going to be a good podcast. I think it's a really, really important topic. I mean, so much so that I'll probably send this podcast out. I don't send them all out, but a few once in a while, I will email them out to all of our people we have in our database.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably going to be one of them. I would like to thank so very much Bethany and Jonah from Healthy Grant Pro for coming on today's podcast. And if you like today's podcast, please feel free to share it with a friend, and also subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. The guests that I've brought on over the last 6 years, I really think that if you just listen to all of these guests that I brought on, you're just going to be a lot better at what you do, and you're going to be happier. There's so many great experts that I've brought on, and I really appreciate them coming on. So, and if you like today's podcast or any of the other ones, please give us a 5-star review, and it continues to help us get the word out. And of course, if you're looking for a line of credit for your nonprofit, you can call us or visit our website at nonprofitmbapodcast.com. Bethany and Jonah, if people want to get a hold of you, how would they go about doing that?
I always leave it to Bethany. She takes care of us.
The best way probably really is to look up our journal articles. They're at the Journal of the Grant Professionals Association. That's where our work resides. We also use the hashtag Healthy Grant Pro on all social media. So that's a lot following
And
that.
And both of you are mainly consultants that
Yes.
help people win grants. Is that fair, fair to say?
That is correct. Yep.
So, and if they want to get in touch with you to help them win grants, do you have a website or no? Or
No.
Healthy Grant Pro does not. I do. bmpconsulting.org.
Okay.
And,
okay. So
and I can always get in touch with Jonna.
Sounds good.
And we're on LinkedIn and other things.
Yeah,
so
yes.
we're findable, but we're not also putting ourselves out to say throw more work at us. It's one of our boundaries.
Yes.
Gotcha. There you go.
Well, we can help. We can help get
Yes.
you matched up with somebody.
Well,
Yes, we can.
Thanks for coming on today.
Thank you.
Well, Stephen, thank you.
Yep. So I just, I'm going to end it just shortly and differently than I normally do since we've talked about the topic. But I just want to remind everybody that, today's topic, you got to prioritize yourself. You need to come first. You are no help to your family, your employees, your cause. If you don't think every day, what am I going to do today to help me have more energy? And it might be meditating. It could be praying. It could be reading. It could be going for a walk. It could be spending quiet time, listening to music, whatever works for you. And you have to think about that every day. It should not be an afterthought. Other than that, everybody have a great day. And thank you for listening to the Nonprofit MBA podcast.